Your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling transmission.
Good morning and welcome to News Breakfast. It's Wednesday. It's great to have your company this morning. I'm Michael Rowland.
And I'm Virginia Trioli. Glad you could join us. In our news today, alarming reports emerge of unarmed civilians being shot on sight as Syrian forces retake Aleppo.
We're filled with the deepest foreboding for those who remain in this last hellish corner of opposition-held eastern Aleppo.
Power pain. A new report warns average electricity bills to rise by $80 in the next 2 years.
A lucky escape, 7 people unharmed after a flying doctor plane skids onto the runway when its wheel collapses.
Leading sport this morning, Pakistan says it's confident of breaking Australia's 28-year unbeaten streak at the Gabba.
A sweltering night in Sydney with some of the hottest temperatures on record.
The battle for the city of Aleppo in Syria is all but over, with Russia saying all military action has now stopped and the Syrian government is in control. The UN's accused advancing government troops of war crimes, with reports that dozens of rebels and civilians have been killed in their homes and on the street.
Earlier, both sides reported a ceasefire had been agreed, but the details are still very much unclear this morning, with conflicting information of whether both civilians and rebels will be allowed to leave the city. There are also reports up to 100 unaccompanied children are trapped inside a building under heavy attack in the eastern part of that besieged city.
Now, the UN Security Council is holding an emergency meeting on this situation. Earlier, its human rights spokesman Rupert Colville spoke of the atrocities being committed in Aleppo.
Civilians have paid a brutal price during this conflict, and we're filled with the deepest foreboding for those who remain in this last hellish corner of opposition-held eastern Aleppo. While some reportedly managed to flee yesterday, some were reportedly caught and killed on the spot. We've also been informed that pro-government forces have been entering civilian homes and killing those individuals found inside, including women and children.
In these hours, look like a complete meltdown of humanity in Aleppo. We also, of course, reiterate our extreme concern for the safety and security of those trapped still.
A fast-moving story, this one, also at the United Nations. Just a short time ago, the US and Russia went head-to-head over that rapidly deteriorating humanitarian situation in Aleppo.
Up to 100 children are reportedly trapped right now in a building under heavy fire. Terrorists, clearly. Young children, they must be terrorists. Because everybody being executed, everybody being barrel bombed, everybody who's been chlorine attacked, you're going to be told they're all terrorists. Every last one of them, even the infants. The regime of Bashar al-Assad, Russia, Iran, and their affiliated militia are the ones responsible for what the UN called a complete meltdown of humanity.
What I find very strange was the statement by the US representative who built her statement as if she was Mother Teresa. Now, please remember what country you're representing. Remember your own country's track record, and then you can start opining from the position of any moral supremacy. As to mass arrests and disappearances and bloody reprisals against so-called civilian activists, we have no such information.
Our bill will increase by nearly $80 over the next 2 years. The Australian Energy Market Commission says every state and territory, apart from Queensland and Tasmania, will have to deal with higher prices due to the closure of Victoria's coal-fired Hazelwood plant and South Australia's Northern Power Station. This latest report puts added pressure on state and territory energy ministers meeting in Melbourne later this morning.
7 people were lucky to escape injury last night when a wheel collapsed as a plane from the Royal Flying Doctor Service landed in Melbourne. Witnesses say the plane skidded about 500 metres as it touched down at Essendon Airport. A pilot, nurse and 5 patients were on board. Air safety authorities are now investigating.
Police in WA are investigating how a bus carrying up to 50 passengers crashed into a park. Several people received minor injuries when the bus veered off the Great Eastern Highway in Perth's eastern suburbs. The crash caused major delays for commuters heading to Perth Airport last night.
US President-elect Donald Trump has officially nominated the Chief Executive of ExxonMobil, Rex Tillerson, as his Secretary of State. Donald Trump says Rex Tillerson is among the most accomplished deal-makers in the world. Mr Tillerson has close ties to Moscow, which Mr Trump says will be an advantage during negotiations with Russia. The nomination, of course, still needs Senate approval.
The widow of an Indonesian policeman has rejected an offer of compensation from an Australian woman accused of his murder. In a handwritten note, Sarah Connor expressed her deepest sympathy to the family of the dead Bali officer, offering them 25 million rupiah, or about $2,500. The officer's widow rejected the money, telling a Denpasar court she wanted Ms Connor and her British boyfriend to be punished according to Indonesian law. Sarah Connor and David Taylor face up to 15 years in jail if found guilty on charges of murder and assault causing death.
New Australian research has found that vitamin D levels in pregnant women could play a part in autism in their children. A joint study by the University of Queensland's Brain Institute and a Dutch university found pregnant women with low vitamin D levels were more likely to have children with autistic traits by the time the kids were 6. The scientists say more studies are needed to see if vitamin D influences the genetic factors, which are also believed to be linked to autism.
And the UN has ended its campaign with comic book heroine Wonder Woman less than 2 months after her appointment sparked outrage. In October, the superhero was declared an honorary ambassador to promote messages about women's empowerment and gender-based violence. But Wonder Woman's sexualised appearance was deemed inappropriate by 45,000 people who signed a petition to end the campaign. A UN spokesman says programs linked to fictional characters usually only last just a few months.
Not in every case. Now with finances, Tel.
Thank you, Virginia. Good morning, everyone. Let's take a quick look at the global markets. And a couple of hours before the close, the Dow is currently up 0.6%. London's FTSE rose 1.1% overnight. The Australian dollar is currently buying 75 US cents. Tapis crude is trading at $55 a barrel, and gold is trading at $1,159 an ounce.
Thank you, Dale. Let's check your weather now. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning, Michael. Let's take a look at the weather around the nation's capitals. Brisbane mostly sunny, 31. Hot in Sydney, 38, before a cool change and showers this evening. Canberra partly cloudy with a late shower, 29. And cooler in Melbourne, 20, with a possible morning shower. Windy in Hobart, 16, with a shower or two. Cloudy in Adelaide with a chance of a late shower, 23. And sunny in Perth, 29. While in Darwin, a top of 33 with showers and a possible storm.
OK, let's check the front pages of the major newspapers around the country. No bizarre headlines there, we hope.
Might be.
The Guardian Australia reports doctors have told the UN children are indeed trapped in a building under attack in Aleppo.
The Australian says the coalition is set to make a pitch to disaffected voters in the regions over fears that they'll drift to one nation.
The Financial Review says Treasurer Scott Morrison will urge ratings agencies to consider the positive impact of foreign debt as Australia's AAA credit rating comes under threat.
The Age warns that Victoria's electricity prices are set to soar after a report from the Australian Energy Market Commission found the closure of Hazelwood coal plant will lead to higher prices.
And that same report blames the ACT's 100% renewable energy target for price hikes in the Territory. That's on the front of the Canberra Times.
The ugly truth. The Herald Sun has got hold of a leaked report. It was reported on yesterday, just some elements of which reveal allegations of bullying, sexism and substance abuse in the Metropolitan Fire Brigade.
In the Sydney Morning Herald, a review has found senior surgeons use sticky tape to fix surgical instruments due to equipment shortages at the Prince of Wales Hospital.
The Advertiser says South Australia is set to crack down on drug drivers with tough new laws, proposing offenders should lose their licence for even a first offence.
The West Australian reports a father who sexually assaulted his daughter for a decade has been sentenced to 14 years jail.
The Mercury says greyhound trainers in Tasmania may have to undertake mandatory animal welfare training if they want to stay in the industry.
The NT News pictures music teacher Paul Leggett, who's believed to have drowned during a school trip to Ellery Creek Big Hole, just west of Alice Springs.
The Courier Mail is covering the fraud trial of former Billabong boss Matthew Perrins, and they've done it in cartoon style, that you can see there. His ex-wife yesterday told the court how her former husband revealed he everything.
The Daily Telegraph has an exclusive interview with ex-NRL star Matt Cooper, who has revealed a secret addiction to painkillers that almost killed him.
Cloud and storms extend from WA towards coastal parts of South Australia, and associated clouds cover Victoria and Tasmania. Meanwhile, hot air ahead of a trough is taking heat to eastern Victoria and much of New South Wales. And in Queensland, onshore winds are producing showers along the coast. Let's take a closer look at Queensland, and we'll see those showers and storms in the north, more frequent about the tropical east coast. We might also get showers through the western districts, but in the southeast it'll be mostly dry. Fine and sunny, Brisbane 31 degrees. Another very hot day in New South Wales today, with temperatures highest in the north, but showers are expected to begin in the southwest this morning and extend through the west and to the southeast by this afternoon. Sydney had what is shaping up to be one of the hottest nights on record, and it's heading for a top of 38 today before a cool change this evening. Canberra 29. It'll be partly cloudy in Victoria with isolated showers that'll contract to the north by lunchtime. Melbourne might get a light morning shower as well, 20 degrees. Dry in the east of Tasmania, but showers elsewhere. We could get storms, hail and even snow in the southwest, and it'll be very windy too. Hobart 16 degrees. It'll be wet in South Australia with a chance of showers in the southern agricultural areas and possibly storms in the north. Hot in the northeast and milder further south. Adelaide 23 with a slight chance of a shower. In the south of WA, mainly fine and sunny with light showers along the southern coast that'll ease by the evening. Perth 29. It'll be even hotter with showers and storms in the northern half of WA, and in the Northern Territory it'll be partly cloudy with a chance of showers and storms throughout, but most likely in the top end. Darwin 33 degrees. Tomorrow it'll be much cooler in Sydney, 22 with showers, partly cloudy in Melbourne, 20 degrees, but another sunny day for Perth, 31.
After sweltering through months of an unpleasant build-up, relief may be on the way for the top end. A monsoon trough is forming off the coast of the Territory, and it's tipped to bring cooler weather conditions over the coming weeks.
These ominous dark clouds over Darwin Harbour are a welcome sight for those in the top end.
Finally, we're seeing the first signs of the monsoon trough developing in our neighbourhood.
The trough is expected to move into the Arafura Sea north of the Territory and strengthen at the end of the week. The Bureau says it will then continue south.
The actual cooling effect of the monsoon trough, the locals not only know but appreciate, I'm sure. I mean, I'm over these 35-degree days.
And he's not the only one.
Excited, I suppose. Hopefully it's just a normal wet season where we get lots of rain.
Glad I got my cyclone kit ready from last year.
A monsoon could bring a diverse range of weather, including daily rainfalls of up to 100 millimetres and possible flash flooding. But it could also bring the right conditions for cyclones to form.
It's where cyclones form, so we pay particularly very close attention to the monsoon trough and how it develops.
As for the weather on Christmas Day, it's still too early to predict.
Christmas Day could be a range of things depending how the monsoon evolves.
But the arrival of the monsoon is a sign that it's likely to be a wet Christmas. Sally Brooks, ABC News, Darwin.
Australian researchers have found that pregnant women who are vitamin D deficient are more likely to have children with autistic traits. Professor John McGrath is the lead author of the research, and he joins us now from Brisbane. John McGrath, good morning. So what was the structure of the study?
Hi, Joe. Well, we now know that vitamin D is not only good for the healthy bones, but also for healthy brains. So what we've done here is we've worked with colleagues in the Netherlands. They followed up 4,000 children from before they were born to age 6. We measured vitamin D when the mothers were pregnant, and we asked, the mums and dads were asked when the children were 6 what type of symptoms related to autism these children had. And, Joe, what we found was that the mothers that had low vitamin D, their offspring had an increased risk of autism.
And children in which countries? Was this from countries around the world or primarily the Netherlands and Australia?
This study was done in Rotterdam, so it's a very famous birth cohort. It's like 7-Up. They've been following up these children all their life. And it's an interesting sample, Joe, because there are many people of different ethnic backgrounds, and the prevalence of low vitamin D was much higher than it is in Australia. The interesting thing about this type of research is that vitamin D, it's preventable. We can take safe, cheap, and publicly acceptable interventions. And many of your viewers will know that folate the use of folate supplements has been able to reduce the incidence of spina bifida. So we're wondering and hoping that maybe if we optimise vitamin D levels in pregnant women, we could actually prevent or reduce the incidence of autism.
So talk us through the figures in a bit more detail. How much of a factor was vitamin D deficiency?
Well, autism is a poorly understood group of brain disorders. There are genetic factors and there's a whole range of other factors. So we're not suggesting that low prenatal vitamin D is the main cause. It's one of probably thousands of causes. But what we measured was at 20 weeks, in the middle of the pregnancy, the women gave blood, and when the babies were born, we had blood. We measured vitamin D in that. And 4,000 children were assessed at age 6. And they were asked questions like, do the children make eye contact? Are they good at communicating? Do they have odd repetitive behaviours and rocking? And we built up a continuous measure. It wasn't just autism, yes, no, it was a continuous measure. And we found that those that had low D had about a 3- or 4-fold increased risk of scoring very highly on this measure. So it's quite startling finding. We adjusted for genetics, we adjusted for ethnicity, we adjusted for a whole range of things, and the findings were quite stubborn and persistent. This is the biggest study ever done in the field, and it suggests it's another piece of the jigsaw puzzle. We can't prove it definitively, but it's another little bit of the evidence that suggests we're understanding some of the causes of schizophrenia and autism.
Yeah. And are you able to extrapolate from this that vitamin D is particularly important at any particular stage of pregnancy or not?
Yes, we can. So we particularly found that the blood levels during the middle of the pregnancy were linked to autism. We've done other studies looking at schizophrenia. We found that levels at birth were linked to schizophrenia. So we think there's a whole range of adverse brain outcomes related to the developing brain that may be linked to mid-gestation and late pregnancy vitamin D levels. So that may be the critical window to have the optimal brain development.
You say you're not suggesting this could be a major cause of autism, and there are many factors that come into play. What are some of those other factors apart from what you think vitamin D might be?
Well, we now know very confidently that genetics are a factor, and some of them are very common variants that we all have, and some of them are more rare variants. There are things like prenatal infection, pregnancy and birth complications, maternal birth weight. They all tend to load up slightly. So I think what's happening is that as the brain develops, if there's something missing, like not enough vitamin D or not enough oxygen, then that may just tip a vulnerable brain over. But there's a lot more work to be done in this field. But I think the important thing about the vitamin D finding is that we can do something about this. This is very easy to treat from a public health perspective, and researchers are very drawn to things that you can change.
And so is this a theory that you had and you went to these people in the Netherlands because you knew they had such a large study and you put it through that study? Is that how this worked?
Well, Joe, my colleagues and I at the Queensland Brain Institute have found that low vitamin D is linked to schizophrenia. We've done that in Danish studies, and then we've done an awful lot of animal studies that have convinced us beyond a shadow of a doubt that vitamin D is important in brain development. The animal studies have shown that. So we went, with funding from the National Health and Medical Research Council, to colleagues in Rotterdam, where they have this fantastic birth cohort. Thousands of children have been followed up from before birth to age, they're 12 now, and we got the blood sent from the Netherlands to Brisbane.